right, one of the biggest requests I've had is Alfredo sauce, so let's get started. First, you need 2 cups of cream. Unfortunately, I ran out of cream at about 1 1/4 cup, so I'm going to supplement with a little bit of whole milk, which should work just fine. Next, you need grated Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. Parmigiano Reggiano cheese comes in a block. It's very strong and pungent, but it tastes a lot like Parmesan cheese, which is the copycat version. And then you also need 3/4 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese, which I've already measured out. This Parmigiano Reggiano is a hard cheese, not very much moisture, which is why we're supplementing with mozzarella cheese, which is very moist. That way it gets a lot meltier in the pan. You need about a total of a cup of the Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, but honestly in this recipe, you can add more cheese and it will only make it cheesier. This cheese is authentic and on the expensive side. Can you use the kind of cheese that comes in the green can that you shake over your spaghetti? Yeah, but it won't be as good. But you can use it if that's what you have. If you're a fan of shaky green can cheese, go for it. If you can't get the authentic Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, that's fine, but it might be better to use the shredded Parmesan cheese that comes in a bag rather than the Kraft green shaky can of cheese. Here I've gotten to the point where I need to cut off the very hard rind, and you can see printed on that rind, it says IANO. That is the last part of Parmigiano Reggiano, which shows us that it's authentic and came from the Parma region of Italy. By the way, don't throw away those cheese rinds. Save them, freeze them if you need to. You can use those in your vegetable stock. It makes it very flavorful and yummy. Don't forget to save enough of this cheese to grate over the top of your finished dish as a garnish. A lot of people like extra cheese. You want to make sure you have enough. The recipe I'm using calls for 2 cloves of garlic minced. I'm going to use 3 cloves of garlic because I really like garlic. And I really like mincing. Before I chop garlic, the first thing I do is I use the side of my blade and crush the garlic so that it's flat. When you do this, it releases oils called garlicin, and that is a very flavorful oil that you want to come out in your garlic. When mincing or cutting anything, remember, keep your fingers curled in so that you don't cut your fingertips. You see I use this rocking motion and I put my hand on top of the blade to give myself control. Remember, if you need to scrape your cutting board, use the back of the knife, not the sharp part of the blade. Okay, the prep is done. Let's head over to the stove. I have a pot of water that I'm bringing to a boil. On the other side, I have a saute pan where I'm going to put 3 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm going to melt them together. Don't forget to cough and sneeze into your elbow. Measuring out 2 tablespoons of oil, and these will be over a medium-low heat just to get the butter melting. I use a rubber spatula here because 1, I don't want to scratch up my pan, and 2, I want to be able to scrape the bottom and around the sides of the pan once this sauce starts thickening, because I don't want it to stick to the pan. Now I'm going to generously salt my pasta water. You get so few chances to season pasta. I like to make sure I have plenty of salt in my pasta water. The butter and olive oil are melting together nicely. You can see that the melted butter is getting kind of bubbly and foamy. If we start to see any smoke or if anything starts turning brown, then our heat is way too hot. Once those are melted together, we're going to add in our minced garlic and let it saute, but we don't want to do it for too long because we don't want it to turn brown. We want this sauce to stay white. Keep stirring and moving it around the pan. This will help prevent burning. Now add in the cream, and you want to bring it to a simmer while you're stirring it very often. Remember that a simmer is different from a boil. A boil has heavy, large bubbles. A simmer is more like shaking. So you'll see the liquid shaking back and forth, getting ready to boil. So now you're going to be waiting around a little while, waiting for this mixture to simmer. It's not going to thicken very much at this point. It'll thicken more when we add the cheese. So don't get worried if you see that it's still thin by the time it simmers. It's important to keep your heat pretty low at this point. We want it to be hot enough that it will simmer, but not so hot that will scorch the milk or cream. Okay, is that a simmer I see? Now we can add in our shredded cheese. Just stir that in and make sure it all mixes evenly. Don't forget that you've been waiting all this time for your pasta water to come to a boil, and hopefully by about now it's ready. So I'm using fettuccine noodles, but you can use whatever kind of pasta you have at your house. Fettuccine are long, spaghetti-like noodles, but they're thicker than spaghetti. Dropped a little bit. I'm about to make a little bit of a mess. My pot is small, and I'm going to be breaking my noodles in half so that they kind of fit better. You don't have to do that, but I'm doing it. So how long you cook your noodles depends on what the directions on the box say. My box says 8 or 9 minutes. Don't overcook them though. You do not want a soggy noodle. So now that your sauce has the cheese mixed in, you're going to let that also simmer for about 8 minutes. During this 8 minutes, you can be seasoning your sauce. Remember to have a spoon nearby so that you can taste it for seasoning. You don't necessarily need to add salt. A lot of these pre-shredded cheeses have a very high salt content, so you don't need a ton of salt to flavor your sauce. Another thing to note is that the recipe calls for white pepper. White pepper tastes about the same as black pepper. The only advantage is that white pepper will not add black flakes to your sauce. If it matters to you to have a beautiful, purely white sauce, then try to find some white pepper. If that doesn't matter, use black pepper. I'm going to use black pepper at the end of this. You need to be stirring your sauce pretty constantly this whole time because you don't want to end up with a scorched or burnt sauce. We want our sauce to stay creamy and unburnt. Okay, my timer is about to go off, so once these noodles are done boiling, you just take them and drain them through a colander and put them back into the pot or into a serving bowl. Oh look, they're in a serving bowl now. So this is ready to sauce and eat now, but I'm going to try a fancy serving trick that I saw on that movie Chef on Netflix, and you'll see in a moment that I'm not going to do a very good job. But you can try it at home and see how it works out. So the idea is that you use this meat fork to twist up a serving of the pasta that you can then plate in a nice twisty shape onto your serving dish. It doesn't work out for me, and here's why. I broke my noodles in half and they're too short. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I agree. That doesn't look very good. Well, try it again. So here you can see after I gave up on trying the fancy servy thing, but you know what? That's not what this is about. Just eat your pasta. Grating a little extra fresh Parmigiano Reggiano cheese over the top. Some fresh cracked black pepper. And if you have some parsley at home, chop a little bit up and garnish it with some parsley for color. But I don't have parsley. Enjoy!